You think you know what hell is? Fire, darkness, eternal pain. It's so much worse. A 14th century saint was given a guided tour of the abyss. She wasn't just shown the suffering of a random soul. She was shown the precise, custom-built torment of the most infamous traitor in history, Judas Iscariot. And what she saw reveals a horror tailored specifically to his crime, a chilling blueprint of divine justice that goes far beyond simple fire and brimstone. This wasn't some fringe mystic. This was Bridget of Sweden, a mother of 8, a noblewoman, a founder of a religious order, and a canonized saint whose revelations were studied by popes and theologians for centuries. She wasn't seeking out these horrors. They were shown to her by Christ himself as a warning, a message about the true nature of sin and the terrifying consequences of despair. Before you dismiss this, remember that the Church took her visions so seriously, they became a cornerstone of spiritual reading for generations. So what did she see? What was so important that it needed to be revealed? If you find this kind of deep dive into forgotten history fascinating, take a moment to subscribe. We're going far beyond the surface level here. The first torment Bridget witnessed was aimed directly at Judas's greed. His soul was placed on an anvil, like a piece of iron in a blacksmith's forge. Demonic smiths with hammers of fire beat and pounded his soul, stretching it, compressing it, twisting it into unnatural shapes. One moment, he was stretched out longer than a spear. The next, he was pounded into a dense, screaming ball. This wasn't random violence. It was a terrifying mirror of his sin. Just as he allowed greed to stretch his conscience and compress his loyalty, his very essence was now being violently reshaped. The 30 pieces of silver, the price of his betrayal, had bought him an eternity of being hammered and reforged in the fires of his own avarice, never knowing a moment of peace, only the constant, rhythmic agony of the forge. Next, Bridget saw him seated on a throne. But this wasn't a throne of power. It was a writhing mass of venomous serpents. These vipers formed the seat, the back, the armrests. They were his crown, his scepter, his royal robes. They burrowed into him from every direction. His eyes, his ears, his nose, his mouth, every opening was a gateway for these creatures. They gnawed at his heart from the inside, injecting a venom not of death, but of perpetual, excruciating life. This torture was for his pride and his treachery. He sought a position of influence among the apostles. He plotted in the shadows. Now, his only kingdom is a throne of betrayal, his only subjects the vipers that consume him, a constant, living reminder of the poison he introduced into the world. Then came the torment for his final, and perhaps greatest, sin, despair. Bridget saw 2 nails, glowing with a terrible coldness, driven through his hands. Another 2 were driven through his feet, pinning him to his serpent throne. These were not the nails of martyrdom. They were the nails of hopelessness. They represented his refusal to seek forgiveness. After his betrayal, Judas felt remorse, but it curdled into despair. He believed his sin was too great for God's mercy. He gave up. These nails were the physical manifestation of that spiritual choice. They pinned him down not just with physical pain, but with the crushing weight of his own belief that he was beyond saving. It's a chilling thought. A punishment not for the betrayal itself, but for the failure to believe in the possibility of being forgiven for it. In the vision, demons approached Judas with a goblet. It was filled not with wine, but with the foulest substance imaginable. They forced it into his mouth, and this liquid fire burned him from the inside out. His stomach, his heart, his very core were consumed by this draught. This was the inversion of the Eucharist. At the Last Supper, Judas partook of the wine that symbolized the covenant of mercy and salvation, all while plotting his betrayal. Now, in hell, his only drink is a concoction of pure bitterness and sulfur, a sacrament of damnation. It is a constant, internal burning that mirrors the way his secret sin must have burned within him, a torment that provides no relief, only an intensification of his suffering. It's a question that echoes through the centuries, isn't it? Why Judas? Why that time's agonizing final fate for him alone? He wasn't the only one who betrayed Jesus. Not by a long shot. Think about Peter, the very foundation Jesus spoke of building his church upon. This man, not some peripheral disciple, but the fierce, impulsive leader, denied his Lord, not once, but 3 times, with oaths, with curses, swearing he didn't even know the man. Imagine the terror, the instinct for self-preservation, overriding everything he believed in. You can almost hear the fire crackling, see the faces of the accusers, feel the chill of that pre-dawn hour, and then the crow of the rooster, sharp, unmistakable. So what was the difference? The visions of Saint Bridget, and indeed all of Catholic theology, point to one single, critical distinction. It wasn't the times of betrayal itself. It was what they did times after times they sinned. It was the path chosen in the shadow of that profound failure. When that rooster crowed, Peter remembered the words Jesus had spoken, the prophecy, and it hit him like a physical blow to the chest. He didn't just feel bad, he was utterly broken. The gospel tells us he went out and times wept bitterly asterisk, not a few polite tears. This was a soul-shattering grief, a visceral, guttural cry of a man who had ripped a hole in his own heart. He saw the vast chasm between who he was and who he should have been for his friend, for his master. Yet, even in that crushing sorrow, a tiny ember of hope flickered. He despaired, yes, in times what he had done asterisk. Oh, he hated his weakness, his cowardice. But he didn't despair in God's capacity to forgive. He held on to the truth that mercy was larger than his mistake, that grace could bridge even that chasm. He believed in a path back. He turned. He sought forgiveness. And he spent the rest of his life not running from his past, but times redeeming times it. His life became a living testament to conversion, to transformation. He poured out his life as an offering, making amends until his very last breath. Judas, on the other hand, he felt remorse too, absolutely. He saw the terrible consequence of his actions. He even tried to return the 30 pieces of silver, a desperate, futile gesture. But that sorrow, that crushing guilt, it didn't lead him to God. It curled inward, festering, turning toxic. It became self-loathing, a corrosive acid eating away at his soul. He saw the enormity, the sheer horror of his sin. He recognized the betrayal for what it truly was. But tragically, his eyes were blinded to any possibility of grace. He couldn't perceive a path to forgiveness, couldn't imagine a way back from the abyss he'd created for himself. The light of God's mercy, which was shining just as brightly for him as for Peter, simply couldn't penetrate the thick, suffocating fog of his own despair. And so he turned. Not towards repentance, not towards reconciliation, not towards that same boundless mercy that awaited Peter. No, he turned to the rope, to finality, to the cold, hard, definitive end of everything. His last act wasn't a plea for redemption. It was a devastating, absolute surrender to hopelessness itself. He didn't just give up on himself. He gave up on the very concept of divine forgiveness. That, my friends, is the chilling distinction. That is the one sin that hell itself cannot cure. Because it's not the sin of betrayal, or pride, or lust, or anger. It is the sin of times rejecting the cure asterisk. It's choosing to stand outside the hospital, bleeding, and refusing the doctor's outstretched hand. It's saying, I am beyond help. God's mercy isn't for me. When you refuse the remedy, when you turn your back on the very source of healing, you seal your own fate. You close the door on salvation from the times inside asterisk. And that, for all of theology, is the ultimate tragedy. So why was Bridget shown this terrifying vision? It wasn't for spectacle. It was a profound theological lesson. It serves as a stark warning against not just greed and betrayal, but the subtle, soul-killing poison of despair. It illustrates that the gates of hell are locked from the inside. The vision suggests that the worst torment isn't something inflicted by an angry God, but is the natural, eternal consequence of a soul choosing to sever itself from love, mercy, and hope entirely. Each torment Judas suffers is a reflection of a choice he made. The forge of greed, the snakes of treachery, the nails of despair. It's a self-made hell, perfectly tailored to the sinner. This 700-year-old vision isn't just a medieval horror story. It's a timeless map of self-destruction. We all face our own 30 pieces of silver, the temptations to compromise our integrity for personal gain. We all face moments of failure and betrayal. The ultimate question the vision of Judas leaves us with is this: when we fall, what do we do next? Do we, like Peter, turn back towards the light, no matter how painful, and accept the possibility of mercy? Or do we, like Judas, convince ourselves we are unforgivable and choose the abyss of despair? Let me know in the comments what you think is the most terrifying aspect of this vision, and thank you for watching.